want everybody to meet, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, another Quincy Dem, the current Norfolk County Register of Probate, Patrick McDermott. Welcome, Patrick. Thank you for participating in our meet and greet, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Alicia. And thank you for the Quincy Dems for hosting tonight. This is, as I say, it's like a homecoming, although we've had so many different Zoom meetings over the last couple of weeks with different candidates nights and meetings and reorgs coming up that I've been here quite a few times anyways. But it's nice to be here to talk to you a little bit about what my plans are, obviously, hopefully in the next 6 weeks and beyond. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Patrick McDermott, and I am running to be your next Norfolk County Sheriff. I grew up here in Quincy, where my parents instilled in me a great sense of community and the responsibility to approach each and every challenge with the mission of how can I make things better. These are lessons that I carried with me throughout my schooling, through my adult life, and those are the lessons that guided me into public service. Whether as a community activist in the Montclair-Wollaston Neighborhood Association, a legislative aide in the House of Representatives in the Senate with Alicia Gardner back in the day, a Quincy City Councilor, a prosecutor, an attorney, a current Massachusetts Democratic State Committee man, a Rotarian, or as the Norfolk County Register of Probate. I approach every job, every task, and every challenge by asking simply, how can I help better the community? For me, public service isn't just about showing up. It's about a commitment to do better, to be better, to make real, positive, and lasting changes in our community. I'm running for sheriff because I believe that in this role, the sheriff's office can and must evolve beyond the jail to make real, positive, and lasting change in our community. Along with the jail that is run efficiently, effectively, and safely for the employees and the inmates alike, when I look at the role of sheriff, I see opportunity. Opportunity to embrace the role as the county's chief public safety officer, to be a real and relevant resource for every community in Norfolk County. Look, public safety is more than putting criminals in jail. It has to be, and we all know it. Public safety means creating the environment where everyone in a community feels safe to live, to grow, to work, and to thrive. Whether it's the opioid crisis and the influx of crime associated with it, a natural disaster, or a public health crisis like COVID-19, the sheriff's office can and should be part of the answer, leading the county and coordinating responses across all of our communities. The infrastructure is in place, and at a time when resources are thin and the need continues to grow, it's a time for the sheriff's office to step up for the people in Norfolk County. Playing a greater role in each of the 28 communities of the county means greater safety for everyone. Reaching out to our vulnerable populations, our youth, through expanded programs and mentorship means we can change the trajectory of someone's life before they get into real trouble. My experiences working directly with our juvenile court system here in Norfolk County has given me a unique perspective on young people in crisis. Sitting down with our communities of color and our immigrant populations to hear their concerns and have the difficult but necessary conversations means we make our communities safe for all. Expanding prevention and information programs means we help people avoid falling victims to crime. By working with local first responders, we can enhance all of these efforts and increase public safety across Norfolk County. Look, we can't talk about public safety when the public doesn't feel safe. These are my goals and my focus as your next sheriff. While people who commit a crime should be held accountable and do their time, we also need to do more to provide resources to reduce recidivism. Punishment may be a deterrent, but giving those who are incarcerated the tools, more importantly, the hope to choose a different productive path in our society has to be part of the equation. We need to better address the grip of addiction and provide the right kind of rehabilitation to break the cycle of those inmates that find victims of that act. And while these programs may exist, they are simply not achieving those goals. We are basically dropping the ball. And as sheriff, I want to work with our therapists, our educators, and our trainers to expand and improve these services for inmates during their incarceration and throughout the reentry process into society, back to Quincy, to get them and keep them on the right path. Jobs, housing, mental health and addiction counseling, economic and food security. These are tangible assets that we must seek out and provide for these men. Prevention, intervention, education, and hope. Those are the keys to a safer and a stronger Norfolk County. I bring into these final weeks of this campaign the support and the endorsement of numerous friends from our labor community, and most relevant, the endorsement of the men and women who serve 365 days a year, 24/7, the Norfolk County Corrections Officers, as well as the non-uniformed employees at the jail that work directly with the inmates prior to reentry. They believe in what I have to say, and I hope you do too. As I have for the past 18 years as your Register of Probate, I pledge to you that as your sheriff, each and every day, I will work to put these principles into practice to make our community safer. Now is the time for change. Now is the time for our public service and our public officials to evolve. Now is the time for a new perspective and a new passion for public safety in Quincy and throughout all of the 28 towns of Norfolk County. I'm ready to lead that change, and with your help, we can create a safer, more secure Norfolk County. Thank you for having me tonight. I look forward to getting your vote. I hope to earn your vote over the next 6 weeks, September 1st, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the crew might have.
Okay, we have the first question from John Kane, who I'm just trying to find here in the chat.
I see him. He needs to be unmuted.
Good evening, Pat. How are you?
Good, John. Yourself?
Oh, I can't complain for an old man.
There we go.
Pat, you have family in law enforcement. I have relatives in law enforcement. We have friends and relatives and neighbors in law enforcement. And I appreciate everything that law enforcement does because we've never run into any real problems as a family. But with the term Black Lives Matters, it has one meaning to one group of folks and another meaning to another. So what I'd like to know is what is your view and how would you deal with it?
It's a great question, John, and it's something that I have, I think we've all had the opportunity to engage a little bit more in a different way than we've ever engaged before. I know I have. Specifically for me, I had the opportunity, as you say, John, my brother, as we all know, my brother, or you may not know, my brother Chris is a Quincy police officer. He was a canine officer for the last 8 years before retiring his dog this year. But Chris has been an officer of the Quincy Police Department since 1997 and has been an admirable member of that department, serving alongside of many, many great public servants. I had the opportunity to actually be in a unique situation a couple of weeks ago in Braintree. There was a rally for the Braintree Police Department, but it was also a welcomed rally for folks from the Black Lives Matter movement to come together. And it was a division. There was the police supporters on one side, and there was the Black Lives Matter people on another side. I had the opportunity to kind of hover in the middle a little bit. Certainly, I know most of the law enforcement in Braintree, but I was the last one to leave that night because I felt it was important for me to understand what their thoughts were, where they wanted to go, what was the real perspective as to what they want to know. That rally was supposed to end at 7:30. I didn't leave Braintree Town Hall till a little after 9 o'clock. I had the entire crowd of Black Lives Matter who were there engaging in a great discussion. And to be honest with you, the one thing that has come back again and again to me is that, to me, that we certainly have systemic racism in our country, and we find it within our communities and sometimes within our own households. I think that we need to declare racism to be a public health crisis. I've advocated for being the public safety officer for Norfolk County, and I believe that right now we need aggressive discussions. And I said in my talk early on, we need those hard discussions, sometimes difficult to have with people to determine, bring us all together to find out where we want to go. And I think if we recognize that this is a public health crisis, that, and here's the other thing. I've served on many committees, and there's nothing worse than a committee that gets put together and does nothing. Drives me crazy. If you want me to lead the charge as the next sheriff, I would love to do that, because I think this is an issue that ought not go away based upon the next headline. God forbid something else happens tomorrow, and all of a sudden, whether it's the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd, whoever, is not on the radar anymore. We can't allow that to happen. It's happened far too often when somebody's either shot by a police officer or there's just violence in our inner cities. We need to make a public stand, and I believe it's by saying that we have a public health crisis on our hand. And as the next sheriff, I'm willing to lead that discussion with all the help from our community, especially our friends in the Democratic Party.
Okay, great. Our next question is from Emily Hajar.
Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for being here. My question is about what you would do as sheriff for the emerging adult population. So that's about 18 to 25-year-olds who come into the jail. As we know now from research that brain development stops around age 25. So just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that population.
It's an awesome question, Emily, and I'll tell you something. I've done a lot of research on this, and you're right. And the development of a youth brain from the 18 to 25 area can be traumatic, and certain things are happening with that population that we can't necessarily put them into a general population environment. So here's what I've been talking about for the last several months. Is trying to put together, and to me, it's a very easy commitment for me, is to put a juvenile or a young adult / first-time offender program in place at the Norfolk County Correctional Facility. Now, look, crime it can be a wide spectrum. Folks could be sentenced for 30 days or up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction. So it really depends on the offense that offender has put together. But at the end of the day, if it's a youthful offender, somebody that is a first-time offender, I think we need a segregated unit to work with those folks to figure out what the systemic issue that they might have, that they're all of a sudden at the jail now, what happened to them that got them there in the first place. And I think that if you have a segregated unit that works with those youthful offenders or first-time offenders, I think that the concentration has to be on reducing the recidivism rate with those folks. And like I said earlier, I've worked with, at the Probate and Family Court, we've worked directly with the other trial court systems, juvenile court, the district court, in working with some of our younger offenders. Especially, you got some young men who have come back from service overseas and as veterans with post-traumatic stress, oftentimes with mental health issues that are unfortunately now committing crimes. I was a member of the original team that set up a veterans court in the trial court system, and so working with those younger offenders to figure out what their issues might be, and try to reform them before they go back into the community. We need to create partnerships too. That's the other thing. There is not necessarily a need to get every person that gets convicted of a crime into the jail facility. I think we have to find more and more opportunities to keep folks out of the correctional facility and back in the community, whether it's through our expanded bracelet program that keeps at least a check on people, working with our probation office to make sure that they're directly involved, and certainly working with our nonprofit community, which I'm very, very familiar with in Quincy from my years of service here, and certainly throughout Norfolk County to work with them. So there's a lot of things that we can do for our young folks in the community that find themselves on the wrong track.
Thank you.
And our next question is from Hannah Cohen.
Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. My question relates a little bit to what you touched on with the Black Lives Matter movement. Often we tend to rely on trainings and discussions and not so much on action, as you touched on. If you were elected sheriff, what specific actions would you like to see in terms of holding officers accountable for what's covered in those trainings?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously as sheriff, I would be in command of a force of about 185 corrections officers that would be working directly with our inmate population. Certainly, I have to give Sheriff Bellotti credit because Mike Bellotti invested heavily in training for officers, whether it's sensitivity training, how to handle aggressive situations as they come up. But there has to be better training. In fact, I even know it amongst the trial court where I work now. We need to do a better job at least training our staff. One of the things I did at the Registry of Probate over the last few years is I made it a point to try to create a more diversified staff that reflects the community that we work in. And I think the same kind of training that I had in terms of how to hire for racial equity and diversity within your workforce, I would bring to the sheriff's office. And with it comes advanced training. And certainly these are hostile situations sometimes, and corrections officers are right on the front line of some dangerous work. And so they need to sometimes make split-second decisions, much like our police officers make. But they have to know that they have the right training in their background that's going to give them all of the opportunity to stay safe while also keeping the inmates safe as well. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm familiar with that kind of work in terms of creating a racial diverse work environment, as well as making sure that we have training for sensitivity, as well as making sure that the staff knows how to handle those hostile situations.
Okay, great. And our next question comes from Kelly Koplamir.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Kelly. Coming over from Braintree. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, nothing else going on in Braintree tonight.
I love it.
I had a question regarding the recent police reform bill that passed the Senate and that's going to the House. And yep. I know there was some controversial talk about some things, but I think overall it looked like a lot of common sense that was put into it, including some juvenile justice amendments. Yep. So I just want to know what your thoughts on the bill and that kind of stuff.
So I can give you my general thoughts. I mean, you know what drives me crazy? Having worked in the legislature back, now it seems like 100 years ago. It's amazing how long legislation does take to pass until the legislature actually wants to do something. And it's amazing how lightning fast they can put something through. So I'm a little discouraged as to how fast this bill went through, because I think it needs a little bit more substantial discussion. I think the Senate failed us miserably by not conducting a public hearing. The House, I think, is trying to do something. I think they've allowed for some public comment. But unfortunately, I got to say that in general, I don't like to fully comment until I've read a bill. And I know that the Senate bill was 75 pages. The House bill was 129 pages. So I'm probably like many of you reading the newspaper and listening to the radio as to what the kind of the cheat sheet is on it. It seems to me the biggest stickler, but there's a lot of great things in the bill. They talk about training. They talk about the ban of chokeholds, all that stuff. I think that most, if not all, of the police departments are going to be in favor of. The stickler point right now comes down to this doctrine of qualified immunity, which is something that the police union is adamantly against there being a codification of that. The House version is a little bit, right now it's wedded in case law through the Supreme Court on how qualified immunity evolved. And it basically gives immunity to public safety officers, and that includes firefighters, nurses. In fact, I have a degree of qualified immunity at the courthouse for some of the actions that I take, so that I basically wouldn't be subject to civil lawsuits for the actions that I might take. However, the law basically says I can't just act however I want to act with willful and wanton conduct. And that still applies to police, firefighters, nurses, and public officials. However, the bill actually drills down a little bit more. They want to put together a civilian review board. I don't think that's really a bad thing. Some of my friends in the law enforcement community don't want to have a civilian review board. I think most of us, I mean, I'm a lawyer. There's a Massachusetts, the Board of Bar Overseers that oversees me. There's a board of people that deal with hairstylists. So people, if you know, you have to have a license for a lot of things. And so this bill basically provides an opportunity for licensing a police officer. And I think that's a good thing because it encourages more training. But I think that the qualified immunity thing is a little bit of an issue for folks. I have concern knowing the kinds of decisions sometimes that the police officer put in place. Now, look, we don't have to go too far, by the way, to see what hesitation can do.
Patrick.
Yep, we almost
I'm
done.
sorry, we are done, honey. But I
Okay.
want to give you the opportunity to tell people if they're interested in working on your
Gotcha.
campaign, how they can do that. You got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. I just want to say Michael Chesna, a sergeant in Weymouth, died because he hesitated, and that was the problem. He hesitated because he didn't. He may have not been able to protect himself because of that. So, anyways, my website. I would really love you to come. PatrickMcDermott.org. You can find me on Facebook. Just search Patrick McDermott for Sheriff. We'd love to have you sign up to help out. We're holding signs, we're getting sign locations in place, all that fun stuff. If you want to make a donation, it's patrickmcdermott.org/donate. And it's been a great night hanging out at home here with you guys in Quincy. So I'll see probably most of you tomorrow night at the reorg meeting.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. We really appreciate your time tonight.
Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody's questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you again, Patrick, for your time.
Thank you.